welcome to Hardware Meetup, Women in Hardware. I'm Michaela, I'm a mechatronics engineer. So could you put up your hand if you've been to a Hardware Meetup before? Just a few, awesome. So there's quite a few people that haven't though. So if you haven't been to Hardware Meetup, we've been running since 2016 and we're all about bringing people together to showcase amazing companies working in different areas of the hardware space. Typical events will have a theme like agri-tech, mid-tech, food tech, wearables, and then we'll have 3 speakers who work in a company working very specifically in that, and they just share their journey and like a kind of panel discussion. So this one's a bit different. So this event today is a bit different because we have 3 women who work at engineering companies. So we're going to have them all give a 5-minute introduction about themselves, and then we're going to have an open Q&A with the audience. Cool. So why are we hosting this event? So myself and Divya, who's down the back, who's signed you all in today, I just want to give her kudos that she's like pretty much put on this entire event and she's put in so much work. So thank you very much, Divya. But we basically decided to put on this event because me and Divya went to university together like 2 years ago, and now we're out. And university can be quite supportive about women in engineering, and we're quite used to being surrounded by other women doing engineering. And now that we're working in industry, we're like the only woman in our team or the whole company. And it can be quite isolating, we found. You can often feel like a bit undermined being in a male-only team. And the opportunities to meet other women are always at university. There's not actually any other opportunities once you're in industry. And then also most of our managers are males as well, which can be quite problematic sometimes, just in terms of actually being able to talk to about things. And it's just a really weird space to navigate because you feel like the only one. So Divya was telling me about this and she was like, why don't we put on a networking event for women in hardware? And I was like, yes, that's a fantastic idea. So that's why we're here today. And also we've kind of struggled with Hardware Meetup so it was started 8 years ago. And it's really great that we have a really big database, but the problem we have is that our events, we can only cater for 100 people. It sells out in less than 2 days, so we don't really get a chance to promote it to new people. So we really struggle to get women to come along because we don't get the chance to let them know about it. So a big part of this event is also letting you know about Hardware Meetup as well. So we have an event coming up on the 2nd of October focused on energy, and that is launching tonight. So first up, we couldn't put on this event without our lovely sponsors. So our first sponsors is Outset Ventures. Sonia, would you be able to come up and give a little spiel about Outset?
Welcome to Outset, everyone. If you haven't been to one of these events, I guess maybe we'll see you more frequently because I think you all host these mostly here in Auckland, right?
Yep.
So Outset, what we are is a venture capital group, and we help startups get going on their mission. If they have a bright new idea, you're going to hear from companies like Halter. Well, they were a startup at one stage, and they still are considered a startup since they're not selling huge amounts of revenue yet. So we help all these companies that you see on the wall, and I help with a lot of the day-to-day operations of the space here. We have 3/4 of this building with our startups, and they do things from making specialized microphones to making specialized feed for cows that reduce methane production, to things like Daisy Labs that are making casein protein, which I think they talked about the last Hardware Meetup. So we do all kinds of things hardware related, so other things than IT and software. And we have a pretty vibrant community here, and everyone seems to love to work here. And so we just help with getting people off the ground, from helping them raise money to getting their first little lab set up. They may start with 2 people and then end up with 10 or 20 in another year or 2. And as they get too big, then they have to graduate from our site here and move on to bigger horizons. So welcome to our space.
So that's Outset Ventures and our other sponsors. So Loon Digital. I don't know if Edith was able to make it because of the weather today. Yeah, I think traffic is just ridiculous. Anyway, Loon Digital is an expert engineering team that can help you to develop smart, energy-efficient IoT devices. They've sponsored a few of our hardware meetups, so you'll see Edith around our other ones too. Lounders Jordan, they are a top niche law firm with corporate, commercial, property, employment, IP, and litigation service offerings. We've got 2 representatives from Lounders Jordan here today. Please put your hands up. Hello. Have a chat with them. And then also Blackbird, I don't think we have anyone from Blackbird tonight here, which is a venture capital fund based in New Zealand and Australia. And they're also a quite regular sponsor. So now we have our speakers. So they're all going to give their little intros, and then we're going to have our Q&A. So first up, we have Emily, who works at Multitudes. Welcome.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. This is a little bit of a full circle moment because I was part of the original team that started Hardware Meetup back in 2016 with Elise, David, a couple others, and Michaela was just a little high school student at the time, and now look at her. So it's really awesome to be here, especially, I can't believe it's taken us 8 years to have a woman in hardware. We always tried to actively get more women along to the meetup. So it's really cool to have this event. But yes, I am Emily. As you can see from my slides, I like a lot of different modes of transport. So I have a horse. His name's Tonic. Absolutely love him to bits. I've been a horse rider since I was young, as long as I can remember. If there was a job that could combine hardware and horses, I would be there in a second. Fortunately, that's not really in New Zealand. But yes, I ride quite a lot. And then additionally, I ride a motorbike. So I have had my motorbike license for about a year. Also love that. The faster, the better. Quite into cars, all that sort of stuff. And then as well, I'm also quite a big cyclist. So mountain biking, road cycling. And in 2021, my partner and I cycled the length of New Zealand. It sounds impressive, but it wasn't that bad. Anyone can do it. Anyone can do it. It was 35 days. It was just a really cool way to see the country. And I learned a lot about how to be a bike mechanic, which was very helpful when you're in the middle of nowhere having to fix a tire or your brake discs. So that's a little bit about me and what makes me. But in terms of my career and where I started from, so I studied electrical and electronics engineering at the University of Auckland. You can see some photos there. I, during that time, was very, very obsessed with Tesla. Please note, I apologize. This was before Elon Musk revealed his true colors of being an absolute crazy person. And I do not like Tesla anymore. I'm actually the proud owner of a Nissan Leaf as my EV of choice. It's in red, which is always what I wanted. I wanted a red Tesla. So this is just a very small subset of my Tesla photos. It was a thing for me. Anywhere I went in the world, I would take a photo at the Tesla store because they weren't in New Zealand yet. I was that level of obsessed. So in my final year, you have to do a project. And so I went to my supervisor and I was like, look, machine learning's this cool new thing before they called it AI. And then I want to do EVs, electric vehicles. How can I put the two together? He was like, oh, well, battery technology is quite a big problem in terms of measuring how charged your car is. Obviously kind of important, right, that you know that your car is going to get you home. So I did my project on machine learning to determine state of charge of EVs, which was really cool and gave me a whole new world of battery technology. So that was, just really, really awesome to learn. And that came in use when I then moved to Rocket Lab out of uni. So I went to Rocket Lab as a grad with the intention of making my way into the battery team, because Electron rocket, Rocket Lab's rocket, uses lithium-ion batteries, so the same batteries that are in your electric vehicles, to power the pumps. So I was like, sweet, I should just go there. Rockets are cool, this is awesome. But I ended up on the propulsion team. So as you can see the bottom right photo, that's where I worked, not in there, but just outside there. So I worked on all the automation for the rocket engine testing, which was just so awesome. This was just after they'd launched the first rocket. I think they're up to 50 now. So very early days. Some of the highlights include I was on a panel with a real NASA astronaut, which was really cool at the Space and Science Festival. The bottom left one is me at MOTAT being a little nerd. Then some mission patches. But yeah, this was just an awesome experience. Got to really use all of my engineering and software knowledge to put that all together. But unfortunately, I never made it to the battery team because after Rocket Lab, I actually went to China. So I interned in China, in Shenzhen, for 3 months at an e-scooter company that made e-scooters before they were kind of big in New Zealand. This was amazing. So if you don't know, Shenzhen is where everything is made in terms of electronics. So like Apple's there, HP's there. There's like 8-story buildings full of people that you just take your iPhone to and they'll replace the battery in a minute for like $2 New Zealand. Just absolutely hectic. And like how they would reuse stuff. Like I spent 2 hours soldering this little thing onto a smartwatch, and then I gave it back to my boss and I was like, oh, here you go, like I fixed it. And I was like, how much is this worth? And he was like, oh, it was like 20 New Zealand dollars. And I just spent 2 hours soldering a chip onto it. Like in New Zealand, we throw away anything. So yeah, just a really different experience. And yeah, really, really, really loved it. So would go back. Obviously this was before COVID times. Then after that, I started at Halter. If you haven't heard, they're an ag tech company that do collars for dairy cows. This was really awesome. I worked on the data team, but as a startup, this was very, very early days. You just did everything. So I was down on farm quite a lot. As a horse girl, I loved being on farm with the cows. And we did a bunch of stuff around, like you can see, there's kind of some video software footage and cows have numbers on them. So we did a bunch of videoing of the cows to then do data labeling to then train AI. You can't quite see, but the cow we've got there says AI, which we thought was cool. So using a whole bunch of data to predict things like cow behavior, breeding, etc. I'm sure Kate will talk a little bit more about Halter and where they are nowadays. But that was, just really, really awesome. And then I have a confession to make. I'm actually not in hardware anymore. So thank you for having me. After Halter, I actually moved to Multitudes. So Multitudes are a fully software product, so we're SaaS, and we're engineering metrics that aren't creepy. So we do a whole lot of data crunching from all of the online tools that you'll use, and we tell your team how you're doing in terms of performance, collaboration, well-being, and then use that to tell you how you can do better. What's really cool about Multitudes, it was the first time that I wasn't like the only woman in my team. And actually what's really, really cool is that our tech at Multitudes tech team is all women. We haven't really actively sought to do that, but we're really, really passionate about diversity, equity, and inclusion at Multitudes. That's part of where the product stems from, and what we really want to do. So it's just really awesome to work at a company that values that so much. And yeah, like the two guys we have are in like sales and marketing. So it's kind of, it's like our CEO and founder, she's a woman. So just really, really cool. But yeah, I will leave it there.
So hi everyone, I'm Dolsha Kolaratnabevadana. Excuse me for the long last name. That was not a very smart idea, but I'll have to stick with it now. So a little bit about me. I call myself an electronics engineer. I work for the University of Auckland. I'm a senior lecturer there. So I grew up, I was born and raised in Sri Lanka. So I completed my high school education there. Can't really see what's going on with the slides, but sorry guys. So I always knew electronics was my thing. So a lot of people ask me what got me into engineering. I did have an unfair advantage. My dad's an electronics engineer. So that was what got me into it. And it also turned my sister completely off engineering. Oh, no. So it works both ways. But as a young kid, I would watch my dad and I would like follow him around. So obviously I still follow him around, not in the same way, but like it truly did inspire me. So that's why I always advocate a lot for early exposure if you want your kids to think about STEM careers, especially engineering, because a lot of people get turned away when they get into the high school, the teenage years. See this all the time. So moved to New Zealand as a family in 2002. So I completed my high school education in Sri Lanka, came here to start my undergraduate degree at the University of Auckland. So at that time, software engineering was a brand new discipline, probably introduced about 2 years before I started. So as someone who performed well at high school in Sri Lanka, I was automatically put into software. So I did not need to compete for it like everyone else did. So that's what they did to few people who performed well in high school here as well. So that was nice. I thought I was going to do software, maybe. But then I realized the first couple of weeks I was in the software papers that I had to take really wasn't my thing. I really didn't get it. So that really turned me off, which was a good thing. So that's why I'm here to talk to you guys. Sorry, what does that say again? Yeah. So I was a first year engineering student in 2002. So yes, I am that old. And I also left behind a boyfriend in Sri Lanka who I had a long distance relationship with. And that was before all the video calls and, it was very expensive text messages and very expensive international calls. So we mostly did like emails and MSN Messenger. Does anyone remember that? Yeah. Oh, you do? I thought you'd be like, no way, I've never even heard of that. So yeah. So that was me moving to New Zealand. So moving to New Zealand, being an engineering student at the University of Auckland, I did well in some of the papers because I had a really strong background in math and all of that, but I also struggled in some of the other papers, like professional development. Anybody heard of that? Anybody done that in your years at university? So it's a paper where they kind of teach you how to write reports and things like that. So, and I thought I spoke English until I came to New Zealand. And the English that's spoken here is quite different to what you used to on TV, watching British TV or American TV. So what I a lot later realized in life is I'm a person who listens and learns. So when I can't understand what's going on with the accent, I really tune out. So I slept through most of my lectures. So I was not the greatest student. So I'm glad I lived to tell the tale. So I didn't perform too well in my first year, to my parents' utter disappointment and mine as well. I didn't fail anything, but I didn't do really well. So, but I did get my act together in part 2 and then sort of progress through to finish my degree with a first class honors. So my parents have forgiven me. And I'm kind of glad too, because I kind of worked my way through being maybe not a terrible student, but an average student to working my way through to doing reasonably well. So I moved back to Sri Lanka because, remember, I left that boyfriend behind, so I'm still with him. So I moved back to Sri Lanka to start my first job there as an embedded systems engineer, working for Motorola. So I really enjoyed that job, which was my first job. And because I had to sort of get my New Zealand citizenship and a couple of things sorted, I had to move back to New Zealand. So I had to actually leave a job that I really liked for other personal reasons. And I was working as a researcher at the University of Auckland, which sort of gave me a taste into doing research and traveling to conferences and things like that. So I kind of liked it. And then later that year, I moved back to Sri Lanka and started a very different job as a business analyst at the London Stock Exchange Group.
Oh, wow.
So that was interesting. It was a well-paid job. Loved the work environment, hated the work I had to do. So I decided this is not for me. 11 months later, I started looking for another role, and I worked at a university as a research engineer, which was nice. It had its ups and downs. This is not working at a university in New Zealand. This is working at a university in a third world country. So funding is always a challenge. You want to do stuff, but they're not going to give you the money because they don't have the money for it. So there was all of those challenges. And I also got pregnant with my first child. So I got married in 2007. So a couple of changes there. And then I was pregnant with my first child, and my husband said, why not give academia a go? So this was one thing that I had decided that I was never going to do. So I said, I'm going to hate it, and the students are going to hate me even more. But I decided, well, he's like, just give it a go. How many jobs have you changed already? It's just one more to change if you don't like it. So I did give it a go. So every time he blames me for being in academia, I blame him back, right? So I did go into academia. Actually, before that, I came back to New Zealand for a short period of time, registered for a master's with Professor Patrick, who some of you might know him, and decided to do it remotely while working in Sri Lanka. So I completed my master's in the meantime while I was still working. And that also helped me get into academia. So once I got into academia, actually, I realized I actually love this. I love working with young people. I love teaching. And surprisingly, the students didn't seem to mind me as well. So I was like, maybe this is my thing. So I kind of had to do a PhD, right? Because that was required by my job there. So I had already given birth to my first child. She was 2 years old, and I got pregnant with the second one. So I thought it's a great idea to start a PhD while I was 7 months pregnant, right? I mean, it's not that hard, right? It's flexible. I can do, I can maybe work from home every now and then, which I did actually do a lot. But it's not that hard. That's what I thought. So I said to my husband, why don't you start one too? So we both got into a PhD at the same time. So baby number 2 comes along. We realize watching 2 kids is a lot harder than watching 1 kid. It's not double the work. It's about 10 times the work. And then when you don't have money, when you're a student, you're poor. We all know that. We've all been through that. So you had to work part-time and all of that. But yeah, so we still did it. And lots of challenges, and I am the first person that I know of who failed my provisional year review. I was very, very ashamed of it at the time, but I now tell this story because I know that although I failed it, I had a very good reason to fail it. I'm not justifying that everybody should go ahead, have a child, do a PhD, and fail your provisional. That was my own, I think, silliness in some ways. But also, you get into a situation, you also come out of it. You don't give up. That was my thing. So I was given 6 months. Get your act together. Get a project organized. If not, you're going to have to terminate. So that was my deadline. And I did get my act together, and supported by my husband, who was also doing his PhD. And, well, the kids kind of tagged along. Finished our PhDs in 5 years. So it took us, see, the one that was born into the PhD, that's how big she was when I graduated. So both of us finished our PhDs, and I was quite lucky. The timing of me finishing my PhD aligned really well with some people going on sabbatical at the University of Auckland. So I was offered a contract role as a teaching fellow in 2018. So I got an opportunity to teach, and then gradually worked my way through. I also started volunteering with IEEE Women in Engineering, at the time as the secretary, and then now as the chair. So in 2020, I moved to the role of a lecturer, and again, I was struggling because 2020, remember the COVID year? So remember, I'm in hardware, right? So I have to get into the labs to actually get any research done, but all the labs were closed off. There was a lot of uncertainty. A lot of students weren't coming in to do PhDs. So I've just started as a lecturer. So I was constantly reminded that my research wasn't really up to scratch. So that's what I was sort of struggling with. And once the borders opened up and the labs were more accessible, I've managed to get my research up and running. So got a couple of master's and PhD students, but I still have one goal: to attract a female student to do a PhD with me. Still working on that. So if anyone's out there looking out for a PhD, come talk to me. So this year I moved to the role of senior lecturer, and yeah, so what do I do today? So my research is around supercapacitors, like applications. So I don't quite work on developing supercapacitors themselves, but starting to think about that as well. So for renewable energy, storage management, as well as extraction from solar panels, energy harvesting and delivery. So those are the sort of areas that I work in, and I also teach couple of co-electronics papers. So I see some of my students here as well from the past couple of years at second and third year levels for electrical and mechatronics students. Michaela is one of my students. Divya is one of my students, right? So Also, as part of my passion for exposing young people to STEM education at a younger age, I started working on that area as part of my research as well. But then my husband and I also co-founded a company, Little Engineers, where we work on getting electricity education into schools in a more fun and engaging way. Because what we have learned with having our own child who's now in year 10 go through high school, the first thing she was told this year was, she had to do electricity for her year 10 science class, the first thing. First thing she was told was, electricity is hard. That's the last thing you want to hear. And I said, they shouldn't have said that. Even if it is hard, they should not have said that. So we're trying to change that mindset, one child maybe, one school maybe at a time. So so I do have a life outside engineering. I love to paint, and I love to travel, and I also love to bake and decorate cakes. So that cake up there, I did it for a postgraduate bake-off, because they said, bake your research, right? So and those resistors are not real resistors, those are cake resistors. So like people are like, can I eat them? I'm like, yes, you can, just don't eat the wires. So yeah, that's me. And I'll pass it on to, hopefully I haven't taken up more than 5 minutes.
You were one of my favorite lecturers at uni.
Oh, thank you very much.
Cool. I want to say I've also into baking and have made an Arduino cake. So apparently that's just a thing that engineering women do. My name is Kate. I currently work for Halter. I'm the baby of the group, so I'm still fourth year mechanical engineer. So I'll try and keep this brief. As Emily mentioned, Halter is in agriculture for now beef and dairy cows. So we are able to remotely set up like paddocks. You can shift your cows from an app on your phone. We also do like pasture management and like heat and health cycles, and it's a lot of very cool stuff. Cool. Okay. A bit about my uni background. So I was very briefly in the Formula SAE team. That was a time I helped build the winning car. So that's like 2022 was our year. And then, I've been involved in the Women in Engineering Network, just volunteering. I've done a lot of the outreach like Ingenuity Day, which I'm sure Shamali will know about. And I'm really passionate about, encouraging young women into engineering. This year for my Part 4 project, I'm doing one in acoustics, so I spent a lot of time in the anechoic chamber. My Part 4 project is, in fancy terms, it's using granular materials to damp low-frequency vibrations in flooring systems. In basic terms, it means we put sand in floors so that footsteps are more quiet. So like if someone is walking over the top of you, it's not quite as loud, and it's like impact insulation. I also, being a typical mechanical engineer, like planes, so I took aerohydro, made that mistake. Just have generally gone quite deep into acoustics this year, which has been fun. I'm on the production team at Halter. So what production does is basically our mechanical and electrical teams will give us a prototype, and then we have to reliably mass produce that. So within our team, we have supply chain management, who deal with obviously like getting the parts that we need to the factory. We have test engineers, someone who specializes in like getting returned products and processing them and figuring out what the faults are so you can fix that for the design. We have, our lead production engineer, production coordinator, who's basically just someone who can speak Mandarin for us. He's incredibly useful. And then our head of production. So what have I done in my time in my role? To be honest, a lot of documentation. Setting up production lines is always interesting because you have to explain like a 3-hour assembly process in the most basic terms. And we do all of our production currently in China. We're moving that to Thailand, but it's very much like there's a language barrier and you have to be super clear because people will always mess things up. You're like, surely there's no way they can mess this up, and they always do. I've been over to China 3 times now. So as Emily mentioned, Shenzhen is where we build our towers. So that was really cool getting to see that production process from like having nothing. It was built in our warehouse in the office to like we changed the design and then started mass producing it. So we're making like 60 tiles a week at this point. And also we have our collar factory, which the bottom right corner is 3 of our production engineers on the collar side. So I got to go there to help implement a new process, which is also super cool. Done a lot of reliability testing of processes. So we have big issues with waterproofing. As you can imagine, the collars are outside, the plastics are questionably waterproof. So we try and make our PCBs waterproof as well. So then we did some conformal coating testing, and also we were trying to recover solar panels from broken collars. And so I did some testing around like the reliability of whether they'll delaminate when that's a thermal cycle chamber. So we were putting them through a bunch of thermal cycles, seeing how they reacted and if we could actually recover from that. And I've also done some like text fixture development. So we have a cutting jig. It was real bad. Actually, no. At the start, we were cutting them with angle grinders, which I thankfully wasn't there for. But it's like lithium-ion batteries, which you're cutting into a collar. Just hope you don't hit the battery or else it'll catch fire. Real safe stuff. It was thankfully slightly better when I got there, but still like open table saw, you can put your hand on it kind of vibes. So designing test fixtures was a big part of that. And this is, another thing for our collar refurbishment program that I worked on. So some of the things I love about Halter, firstly, it's a dog-friendly office. That's, I think, the best part. These are some of, I don't want to say some of my favorite dogs and I'll feel bad. I love all of them. But yeah, it's just a super great, like, positive environment, even if it is a bit chaotic at times. Some really awesome people. So that top photo, some of the women at Halter, I don't want to say that half of those people have left, but they kind of have. It was taken like mid last year though. And then that's my now wider production and fleet ops team. And then hands-on application. So as Emily mentioned, being down on farm is super cool. Actually getting to like see your product do physical things is awesome. And it's nice to get outside sometimes, touch some grass. Cool. And also the tea is better in China. I have a mild bubble tea addiction. I was quite literally having 2 or 3 a day when I was in China, but it's so cheap and the company's paying for it. So why not? And yeah, that's me.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Now we are going to go into our Q&A. Open up Slido. Alrighty, let's start off with what is it? So I think it's directed to, well, I think most of us actually. Yeah. What was your biggest struggle? What it's like interning while also being at uni? How many hours do you usually do?
Okay, I'll kick us off. Firstly, I'm in like week 8 of my second semester of 4th year, so currently bad. But generally, I work 2 days a week, which is like, 16 to 20 hours. It really depends on the week. And also I work full-time during holidays, but that's a personal choice. I wouldn't advise it. I've also been sent overseas a lot during holidays and it just means no breaks. Overall, I'd say it's a really good experience though. Getting industry experience is super helpful. I don't want to say way more than your engineering degree, but it kind of is. And it's also just a nice mental break. If like you're stressed about assignments, you can go to work, you have a job to do, and it's nice, just to not think about uni for a while.
Yeah, I can add, I also interned in my last year. I actually had 4 jobs in my final year of university. I was actually at Halter, very, very, very early days. I didn't even have a collar at that point, just doing random stuff. At Flex, we were an engineering consultancy. I was a TA at uni, and then I was also at another IoT startup. I don't know how I survived. So much so that when I started work at Rocket Lab and I was just working one job, and it was like Rocket Lab and it was like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. I was like, wow, this is quite nice. So it's a lot, but I think, when we are in your final year, it's just fun. Like it's cool to see all the different stuff. And as Kate mentioned, like it's kind of nice to do work and be like, wow, I'm getting paid for this. And usually you can go home and like not have to think about work, whereas uni, I feel it's always on your mind. You've got an assignment, you've got a project. But it's just really, really good experience. Also, I think as well, just nice to have some money when you're at university. So it is chaotic, but there's an end. But yeah, I would also recommend it. Maybe not 4 jobs, but yeah, it is fun times. And usually you can be flexible.
Yeah, I would say the one thing is I feel like you miss out on some of the social side of uni. Like you definitely don't see your friends as much as they see each other. And it kind of sucks. But also, if you know what you're prioritizing and why you're prioritizing, then you kind of just have to live with that.
Sorry, I think it's been a while since I was an intern, but I can relate because I worked sometimes full-time while I was doing my PhD, which was supposed to be full-time, but like I had to keep the family fed, right? So we did both have scholarships, but that really wasn't enough for a family to live in Auckland now. So yeah, but I personally can say that it is the TA work that I did that got me the job that I am in today. So when my PhD students say that they are interested in academia, they want to get into academia later, I'm like, then please do take your TA work seriously. It's not something that just pays for what you do. It is something that gives you your teaching experience, gives you the confidence to get in front of students and speak. So yeah, so I think it's Auckland's an expensive place to live. So yeah.
For anyone that didn't do engineering, you have to do engineering hours, but you do have this. I will make it clear: you have this. You can do it in the summer. You're not required to intern and be as crazy as these ladies. I also interned in 4th year, and I think it was a lot at first. Actually,
You need like 800 hours to graduate, and I think I had over 2,000. So
Whoa.
don't do that.
do it if you want to.
Yeah.
Emily, how is your experience at Multitudes being in a woman-only team different to your past experiences?
Oh, so it's very directed. Yeah, very, very different. I don't really know how to eloquently put it, but I do feel that Multitudes, we kind of care a lot more about well-being. And our actual CEO and founder had a baby last year, and it just went without saying that she had 3 months off, and we did all the stuff we needed to do to make that happen. We didn't have a maternity leave policy because we hadn't had anyone have a baby before, but the CEO did, so we just made the policy. And we talk a lot about political issues, anything to do with diversity, equity, inclusion. We just have very, very open conversations. And I just feel like, to be honest, I feel a lot more like respected in what I do. No one's ever thought that I couldn't do something just because I'm a woman. Like, especially at Multitudes, I'm the staff engineer, so I'm kind of the top technical person, which is really cool. So yeah, just a very different experience into the conversations you have and just how you feel day to day at work. But not to discredit my previous jobs. Like, I worked with some awesome teams and some awesome guys, but sometimes you have to fight for things that you shouldn't have to fight for. And when you're in a woman-only team, that just comes without saying. So yeah, and especially at really male-dominated companies, they're often like, oh, you want diversity, equity, and inclusion? You're the woman, you do it. And you're like, great, cool. So I've got to do my job and all this other stuff. Whereas the guys just get to do their job and go home, and I'm busy running, the woman in tech thing and bringing in women to the office and doing WIN stuff. And so it's just like a lot of extra work that just completely goes uncredited. That doesn't help you get a promotion usually. So it's just like little things like that. Yeah.
Cool. What was the biggest struggle that you all faced, and how do you think it changed how you work now? It's a very intense question.
Maybe I can start on that one. I think it was my PhD time was probably the biggest struggle, because I was a couple of years younger than I am, so not as experienced, probably not as good at multitasking and working out what to prioritize and what can probably wait. So that has really changed the way I work today. So, yes, I do probably sleep less than the average person. I'm hoping that'll change when my kids grow up a little bit more, because right now I'm raising a tween and a teen. So that's, I don't know, we've all been teenagers. We know that's not easy on our parents. So yeah, I think it really changed how I looked at things. And also they say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, so that really does apply. So it's definitely helped me prioritize and work out what really needs to be done now, what can wait, and that's, I guess, what I apply today to what I do.
This is a hard one. Probably one of the biggest struggles I had was probably starting at Multitudes from the beginning. So when Multitudes first started, there was like one Python script. And I was sort of hired as the tech person to come in and do things. And I was like, I don't know what a tech stack is. So I'd come from a hardware background, right? I'd done Python and some SQL and some things, but suddenly I was having to build like APIs and software and infrastructure. And actually one of the guys at Halter, who's still there, Kurt, who's the DevOps guy, helped me a lot. But that was just really scary to go from having a team around you at a company and having people doing certain parts to suddenly you're responsible for all of it. And then at Multitudes, we deal with, potentially sensitive data. We're pulling data from code, from comments, all sorts of stuff. It's like, personal data. So being like, oh my God, am I doing this correctly? Are we going to get hacked or something? I don't know what I'm doing. So that was, a huge struggle to be the single person that everyone goes to and being like, I don't know what I'm doing. A little bit of imposter syndrome, I guess, of like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I got hired. But hey, it's like 3 years in and we're doing well, so yay. But how I changed how I work now, I think I'm just a bit more chill about things. Like it'll be like, oh, we need to use this new technology. I'm like, okay, like give me a day and I'll like sit through it and figure it out. And then it really encouraged me to rely on my networks. Like we have an amazing tech network in New Zealand, and I know people in all the different fields. If I ever have a question about something security related or anything I'm unsure of, I can always ask someone. So yeah, we definitely encourage that. If you're ever in a situation where you have no idea what you're doing, just ask people. We're happy to help.
I think for me, one of my biggest struggles, so at the end of last year, I had the new tower which we put into production. So I was coming off the back of third year engineering, took no free time. My first week back, they were like, right, okay, we have this assembly process that we have no documentation for. We got the design handed over from like a contractor and it wasn't handed over very well. So no one really knows what's going on. And you have 2 weeks before this needs to be like in production. So that was like a frantic couple of weeks of just, thankfully by that point I knew the team enough that I knew who to ask for different things. But it was a lot of organization. And then the week after I got flown out to China basically we started with a room, like quite literally no walls, no electrical sockets, no anything. So we had to get that all installed, which was thankfully like the factory dealt with that. It was also like 2 weeks before Christmas, so we couldn't really push the deadlines back any further. And it was very much just like a grind. When I got there, most of the engineers dipped at that point and went back to New Zealand for different reasons. So it was like me and the lead engineer. And yeah, we were just like having fires every day. We were trying to ramp too fast. We did actually manage to get it to work, but I had like a 17-hour day and most of my days were like 12 hours. It was, not good. But I mean, I think coming out of it, I was just way more secure in like my confidence and my competence. Like I knew that I could do it. I feel like I earned a lot more respect from my team as well. And it just really gave me the chance to like step up and take more responsibility and ownership. I think just more self-confidence as well coming off the back of that.
How do you approach salary and other workplace negotiations? Women are often socialized not to ask for more. So do any of you have any strategies around that?
Just ask the men what they're making. Most of them will tell you. Again, Multitudes, sorry, we're doing great. But we're transparent in our salaries, so we know what everyone makes. There's bands and you get what that band is and we know what everyone makes. So that transparent salaries is kind of the answer to that, but unfortunately most companies don't do that because it's obviously not in their best interest. But I do think it is helpful, even if it's not someone at your company, ask someone in a similar role, generally a man, what they're making to know what you could be making and what you actually can ask for, and then just ask for it. Like no one, if they really want to hire you, they're not going to say no just because you ask for what you may think is a ridiculous salary. But yeah, that's my 2 cents.
I had a situation, end of last year where I was getting the intern salary, which to be honest wasn't very good. But I was doing work of way more than an intern. And so Halter does like a pay by seat thing, but a lot of my friends are like, this is super unfair on you because like the work that you're putting in, the responsibility you're taking is above what you're being paid for. So I think just having people around you that will like encourage you and boost your self-confidence, because it can be really easy to be like, oh no, I'm actually not worth that. But just like, yeah, know your worth and surround yourself with people who know your worth.
Actually, the university is also one of those companies where the salary bands are published and it's transparent, so everybody knows what everybody makes, except for the professors. They have a starting salary, and then beyond that, nobody knows. Only HR and the professor knows what they make. That's nice, because you have to work very hard to get to professor. So yeah, hopefully one day.
What's the worst experience or interaction you've had specifically related to being a female in engineering? And how did you get around that, I guess? Don't have to answer that question if you don't want to. That's quite intense. I've definitely been like talked down to quite a bit. Had a few incidences.
Not to throw the Formula SAE team under the bus. I think we all know the reputation. Yeah, I don't know. I was on the electronics team for a few months, and it was just a very interesting experience. It's definitely a boys' club. Some of the stuff written on the wiki is pretty horrendous. I don't know. They're definitely way better than they were, but it's still very much like very male-dominated. You have some interesting characters, and because they're still in uni, a lot of them, and also like the typical engineers, A, can't talk to people, B, can't talk to women, like you get some real interesting ones in there. I think, yeah, probably my worst experience with engineering men, unfortunately.
How would you recommend for someone that might go, like what have you learned from that experience?
I think anytime I had an issue, I had people that I knew and trusted on the team, and so I just went to them and they pulled people aside and would deal with it. And that was really good. And yeah, I would say, especially in your workplaces as well, there are people that are employed to look after you. So definitely don't be afraid to like go talk to them, because they have been really good.
I think that also speaks to why it's important to have women in leadership positions as well, which is not that common in this industry.
I mean, I've had a couple of mini experiences. I can't really say one is worse than the other, but it's not drastically that bad either. But I think one of the things that I had in my current job was some male colleagues having really unrealistic expectations on your time and saying, oh, you should be here till late if you want to keep that job. And that wasn't really great for me when I had a family waiting for me to get home. So initially I was feeling like I need to keep up and I need to sort of, because these people have been here longer than I have. So, as the newbie, you feel like you must oblige. But eventually talking to people really helped. And that really helped me understand that actually this is not a realistic expectation. This expectation is from a smaller group of people within the work community. And speaking to people who were in charge of me, like my bosses, basically helped me sort of solve that issue and sort of said, okay, we'll make sure that it doesn't happen again. And I think as women, we tend to hold back. I see this with a lot of my students as well. They're too afraid to ask questions and they're quite confident in what they know. They don't want to speak up. And I was definitely one of those people. And I always say, no, you should speak up if you think you're being treated unfairly. Do speak up. And I have to say, my male bosses in most cases have been better than some of the female bosses that I've had. So they've been, like my current boss is very, very supportive of women in engineering. He's made sure that our department actually has 5 female academic staff members, which is great for anything in engineering. And I think it does have something to do with his wife being a female engineer as well. That's what you want to see. And this is exactly why we need to see more women in leadership roles. So if you're up for one of those roles, if you think you're even partly qualified, please do go for it. Pave the way for someone else.
Nice, awesome. I think one thing that really pisses me off is people seeing that you're the woman and assuming you're there for something like taking meeting notes or like an assistant, which don't get me wrong, those are all very useful jobs. But it just annoys when I'm like, no, I'm an engineer. Like I'm here to actually tell you about this thing. And you're just assuming I'm, someone's bringing you coffee. When I went to China with Halter, actually, when we picked the factory that they're now using with Craig, the CEO, I was there as like the electronics kind of expert's a strong word, but basically our electronics engineer didn't have a visa for China and I did, and I'm an electronics engineer, but I didn't really do a lot of that at Halter. So Craig was like, jump on a plane to China tonight. I was like, okay, Halter for you. Yeah, so I went into all these factories and talked to all these people, and they just thought I was Craig's assistant, and I was like, asking them all these questions, about like, okay, what's your SMD process? Where's the machines? Like, how does that work? Can we do system on chip? All of those sort of questions. And it was like a while before they realized, oh, you're technical. Okay, all right, we can like talk technical to you. And I was like, just because I'm the girl, like I'm more technical than Craig. He's an electronics engineer. Yeah, and then just like being in meetings and people like assuming you're the one that's going to take the meeting minutes. Yeah, it just can get a bit frustrating and kind of wears you down a little bit when you get it constantly. Yeah.
Me myself, I had an incident a few years ago at a company I worked at where it was a racism incident, but it was all, I think he felt like he could say that to me because I was a woman as well. And yeah, I just talked to my manager and it went really well. And also I think it really helps to have a network of other people around you that can kind of hype you up and like you can just talk it through. So I think it's important to have both women in leadership and like a network around you that understands. Cool. Dalsha, from your experience moving from Sri Lanka to NZ, how do you think we can make space for not just gender diversity, but cultural diversity?
That's an interesting one. So, like, I never felt like I was out of place when I moved to New Zealand. There's a lot of Sri Lankans doing engineering that might have something to do with that. So I did feel right at home as soon as I came in, and funnily enough, I reunited with my best friend from year one back in Sri Lanka, which is really strange, but she was in New Zealand doing engineering in the same year as me. So that was great. So she just took me under her wing, and she's a very sociable person. So she dragged me around to everything. So I felt right at home. But I think cultural diversity does, I think we have a lot of diversity inside engineering. You don't just see one group of ethnic communities. And I think one of the spaces that the university is definitely working on is the Maori and Pacific communities, where we see very less students come through. We see more of them in electrical engineering, not for the ideal reasons we want to see them there though. Because electrical as a discipline has gone down in popularity. And that basically means like if you're not performing too well, you get put in electrical, which is not ideal. I don't support it, but it is what it is. And electrical is becoming more popular though. So be assured we'll be a popular discipline soon. But is definitely, I think there's quite a bit we can do in that space, in like the club spaces at university and even inside workplaces. I think there's a lot we can do, get to know people, not just in the workspace, but outside the workspace. That's a great way to get to know someone from different cultures. I personally got to know a lot of different people from different cultures through my PhD, because I think as an undergrad, because I had so many Sri Lankan friends and maybe a lot of Indian friends as well. So we would all hang out together. But then when you come in to do a PhD, you don't quite have the same network. You with a whole group of different people. So you actually get to know people from so many different cultures. And I think the university does great in that sense. Like we actually have events for Diwali, we have events for Matariki and all sorts of, like we have for Iranian New Year, so many things which brings people together, and that's really great. So I think that's one of the things, even in a mini way, if we can create those in workplaces, that would be really great. And you get to know about a new culture, you get to try new food. That's always great.
So yes, on women being expected to do all the women in STEM stuff, any good examples for resources for allies and men getting involved with this work? Like, I don't know, in my experience, like I've hosted a lot of like women in engineering events, especially with when I was in uni. And I think there's a big thing that like, yes, we need to create this community, but also we need to also address the problem that if the men aren't part of this conversation, then they don't know about like what they're doing wrong, like, you know, microaggressions and like what's like makes people uncomfortable. So what's your advice about how we could work on that?
Yeah, I think it's a really important point to bring home, that there's so much like hidden work and unnoticed work that we have to do as women to like get more women into the field. But then you're like, maybe there's a hole in the bucket, like if we keep getting women into the field, but can we keep women in the field? We know that the leaving rates are quite high. I will take this moment to do a little plug. I see, Viv, did you ask that question? No. So Multitudes actually spun out of something called Ally Skills. So they're workshops that, are you still running them? Yes, Viv over here, talk to her at the end. Their workshops, I promise this wasn't planned. They're workshops where they come into your workplace and they talk about allyship, so they with everyone. So they come in and it's just a really good, open, honest discussion. And the facilitators are amazing at what they do because they can address the kind of questions where people are like, oh, I'm not racist, but all that sort of stuff. And it's everything. It's it's ableism, it's sexism, it's racism, everything. They'll discuss that, and I think that's one way. But it really it's just really well done that it gets buy-in from everyone, because it is quite hard. Because sometimes they're like, oh, well, it's not my problem, so why do I have to change how I speak? But yeah, they are really, really helpful. I think they maybe have some free resources online.
Also be clear about what Multitudes actually is for the engineering teams in the room.
Oh, well, yeah, we do like insights and analytics. We will tell you some of that stuff with your team. We work with your teams to help you do better in terms of diversity, equity, inclusion. Some things we have discovered in our product is like, we don't know who the people are, for example, they're just numbers to us, but we're like, oh, this person on team B is getting way less feedback than everyone else. And then like, they'll come back to us and be like, oh, wow, that's the only woman on the team. It's like, oh yeah, that kind of checks. So yeah, things like that. So yeah, things like Multitudes and tools like that, the data doesn't lie. The data says how much work you are actually doing and how much feedback you're getting from your peers. And that's, vastly different to what maybe people think is the case. But then, if you don't want to pay for Ally Skills or anything like that, fair enough. Just having those open and honest conversations with people, unfortunately, is one of those things that takes time. Like other things, the bad side of things scales really well, right? You just watch one YouTube video and you're radicalized, but bringing people back and having those conversations is kind of a one-on-one situation. So yeah, just encourage them, be like, you run this Woman in Tech event for us, please. Yeah, that would be my advice.
Yeah, I think any men around me don't really have a choice. I kind of drag them into whatever I do. I feel for my PhD students sometimes, I'm like, let's go do this STEM event. And then they're like, yeah, sure, because they can't say no to me, right? And I kind of do the same thing to my husband as well. So yeah, it's, I think when you put people on the spot, they kind of don't have a choice. But you can also tell who's interested. I mean, I've got a couple of male colleagues who are genuinely interested in like supporting women in engineering, women in STEM. Like last year, I bid for a IEEE conference, and we hosted a Women in Engineering International Leadership Summit at the University of Auckland. So some of my male colleagues said, oh, I would really like to I would like to register and attend this conference so I can learn how we can have more women in engineering. So he has personally changed the space in the mechanical department. So when I started out, because I teach into the mechatronics program, I know a little bit more about that department. So there were no females in their academic staff. And I kind of felt like the tea lady sometimes sitting at the examiners meetings. But now this particular person has actually advocated and managed to hire 2 female academic staff members, which is great for the students, because when they see female lecturers, they feel a bit more connected, a bit more motivated. I have had so many mechatronics students come speak to me when I teach them in their 3rd year and say to me, you're the first lecturer who has ever taught me since 1st year, right? So I still remember those conversations. I may not necessarily remember which year you're from, but I do remember the female students. One, because there are so few of them, but also because they connect with you a lot more than some of the male students do, just because they want to find that connection and feel like they belong. And that was me as well. I wasn't as fortunate as an undergraduate student, but I think the students these days have more role models to look up to. So hopefully that space will change in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, being on the student side, Priyanka is one of the like new mechanical lecturers, and she's amazing. She's like both very competent and just an awesome girl boss. It's great. So yeah, she's a great role model. And it has been really appreciated.
Priyanka was one of those hires.
Yeah, love her. I would say I think a lot of men are very keen to like help out and learn more about it and like hire more women. It's just kind of like hiring women is really hard because there aren't that many, and when you're looking for super specific roles, it's also real hard because I know a lot of what my team is hiring for currently is like seniors, and you have a lot of more women coming through industry now, but they're all in like junior, intermediate roles, and so it is just challenging. But I think a lot of men are trying.
Yeah, that's true.
Cool. I'm going to wrap that up there. So thank you very much for joining us tonight. I really appreciate hearing all your stories. Pitch time. This is a thing we typically have in Hardware Meetup like halfway through where anyone can come up and pitch for 1 minute. It tends to be like very kind of like wholesome, like, you know, like I have this project I'm working on and I need someone with electrical experience to give me some advice, or maybe you're looking for a job, you're hiring, you're a contractor that just wants to like talk about something.
Kia ora everyone, ko Vivian tōku ingoa. I'm one of the co-directors of Ally Skills Aotearoa. We took over from Lauren, who is Emily's current boss and co-founder CEO of Multitudes. Ally Skills Aotearoa does diversity and inclusion training in corporate, so we can either sit alongside your HR teams and work with them to do your code of conduct, etc., like as a consulting, or we can come in and do workshops. If you don't want to just hear from me, I'm going to put someone on the spot. No? Oh, okay. There may be people in the room that may have done the workshop. No, we do workshops. We've been doing workshops for quite a few years now. 6 years, I want to say. Yeah. And so our bread and butter workshop is a 3-hour workshop, or 2 times 2 hours if you do it online, because no one needs to be like 3 whole hours in one go online. And it basically goes through what is an ally, all the language involved. And like Emily said, it's not just about sexism or racism. It's being an ally in all types of marginalized ways. Yeah, that's me.
Awesome. Thank you, Viv.
Hi everyone, kia ora. Thanks to our awesome organisers for this event. I'm with Lowndes Jordan. We're a law firm, and what we do is, or part of what we do is basically if you're a founder or you're thinking of joining a startup, we can help you with anything to do with that startup relationship or the company. So it could be an ESOP or an incentive scheme. It could be negotiating your deal with your other co-founder, shareholder disputes that happen sometimes, and anything to do with commercial contracts or the company. So there's lots of firms out there that kind of offer services to the startup community, which is great. But I really feel like we have quite a lot of deep kind of relationships in the scene. So just personally, I worked at Lanzatech for 8 years, kind of deep in the trenches of startup life, working on all kinds of things like fundraising. I really feel in my bones the kind of struggle of startup life. We've also got Sarah, who's with me today, who's a partner at Lowndes Jordan. She's worked with K1W1 for about 20 years, I think, on lots of their projects. So yeah, if you want to have a chat to us, we are happy just to have a no commitment chat for free for anyone who approaches us for the first time to see if we might be able to help you out. I'm also personally at Outset, like literally in this kitchen every last Thursday, and anyone can just pop in and have a chat, kind of like a lawyer AMA. So yeah, that's us. Hope to talk to some of you tonight, and feel free to just pop down to Outset on Thursday.
Awesome.
Hi everybody, my name's Emma. You also see Emily. We're the representatives from Escape Masters Manukau. So if you guys have ever done any escape rooms before, that's pretty much what we do. We are currently looking for somebody who can help us design our electronic puzzles. So if anybody is interested in something like that, come and have a talk to us. We do have a couple of requirements. So we would like if you guys have if you have experience in Arduino or Raspberry Pi, just because that's what we already have existing in the rooms. Now, at the moment, it will probably only be about 10 hours to begin with, just for our first puzzle. However, if it's a really great connection, then obviously we will have further puzzles in the future. And we've got a great community. And aside from that, yeah. So if you guys want to come and speak to me and Emily, we'll talk you through it. If you're just looking for coming to do an escape room even, come and talk to us. We can help you guys out. But I will just clarify, we are different to like the central CBD. We are actually our own separate franchise. So we are actually a smaller version of the actual Escape Masters.
I actually used to work at that exact job at the
Yeah.
Central Escape Masters.
So yeah, we are located in Manukau, but it's completely different to the CBD. So we actually have a lot more creative freedom to design puzzles. So that's the one thing.
I went to Manukau once.
I mean,
I think it was cool.
I will say I helped design the rooms. I'm also the maintenance person, so I have a preference to Manukau. Yeah, so it's got better parking than the city, and it's free. But yeah, cool. Thank you.
Kia ora everybody, and thank you very much for the amazing evening. I'm new to kind of building stuff, I suppose, with electrical stuff and robotics, but I've got a startup called Good Grub. We are a clean tech company, and we're taking food waste and through the incredible power of the black soldier fly, transforming this into protein and fertilizer. And using advanced technology to help us, so robotics and vertical farming and stuff like that. So I am just in the middle of my capital raise, and next year we'll be starting to build our first factory. So I am all about wanting amazing people, definitely women as well, to support me on my journey. So please follow us and our journey on LinkedIn. It's Good Grub. We'll be putting up jobs and so forth in the coming year. And looking for amazing people to join us on this exciting journey to try and make change and make impact and reduce emissions and help our planet. Thanks.
Hi everyone, my name is Hannah Eastfold Edwins. I'm the Director of Popcorn Innovation. We're a technical agency that tends to focus on inventive and impactful solutions for climate change. We're not only able to provide senior technical advisory services to our clients, but also we tend to use contractors to deliver a lot of those solutions. And we have kind of an innovative model where we tend to do a equity share kind of program in order to scale projects up. And we've done this in the past on a couple projects. And our latest commercial project is going to be in seaweed, which is an awesome climate mitigation tool. And these solutions, we're trying to attract like-minded collaborators and investors who have kind of like a social kind of emphasis. And in areas of food and cosmetics and so biotechnology, so collaborators who kind of have backgrounds in those that might be really worth talking to. And we're presently raising investment for this. And one of the novel kind of things that we do aside from our equity share model is that we are looking at leveraging property to help fundraise on green tech investments. So we're actually wanting to secure 50% of the $400,000 by leveraging a property in Waiheke Island. So if you're interested to know more about this, look us up online or at popcorninnovators.com. And yeah, awesome.
Thank you. Anyway, so wrapping up, what's next? So Divya is going to send out a feedback form. This is our first time running this kind of event, so it's not super smooth like our other ones usually are. We would really appreciate it if you could fill it out, just so we can get to learn a lot more about you guys, and also how we can cater our normal events towards you more, and also if people want this kind of event to happen a lot more for more of a networking thing, maybe some mentoring. We just really need some feedback. And so on the 2nd of October, so we've just released these tickets today, is our Deep Tech Energy event, which is going to be here at Outset on the Wednesday, the 2nd of October. It's going to cost $15. It will be a similar thing with like food and drinks and stuff. We just made this one free today, so more people would come. And it comes. Oh, and this one comes with dessert. Normally it doesn't, but you should still come to the other one. There are 3 awesome speakers. So from Ternary Kinetics, Energy Bank, and Vortex Power Systems, emceed by me. So yeah, I'd really appreciate it if any of you could make it to this event. I would absolutely love to see you there.